Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Adams Brothers podcast. First and foremost of all, we are joined by former Congresswoman Shelia McCormick, and she represents District 20. We're glad to have Ms. McCormick back on. We had Ms. McCormick on, I believe, twice when she first ran. We had Ms. McCormick on, and she came on and graced the Adams Brothers podcast with her presence. And she's back again now. She's running in a crowded field of opponents. And just want to say, welcome again, former Congresswoman Shelia Cherfilus-McCormick. And we're on live.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here again. And when I heard you say I'm running in a crowded field, they are running for my seats. Let's get that right. They are running to try and represent the district that I represented the last 5 years. Some of them are seeking opportunity. Others are just trying to form shop and be in Congress forever. But I always tell people I ran because of the love for this district. It was never an opportunity for me. It was just an opportunity for me to give back to the district that loved me. So thank you for having me.
Yes, and Congresswoman, we want you to, no one can introduce you better, as my brother always says, introduce you better than yourself. And again, we just like for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself and your accomplishments and how you got to where you are right now.
Well, it started in 1979. No, I'm kidding. You know how people give you these long intros? Well, so I decided to run for Congress back in 2021, even before that. And I really felt like it was a calling. Before then, I was CEO of a healthcare company for more than 15 years. It was my parents' business that we've actually had for more than 37 years. We had a vocational school, which taught people in the community how to get their the CNA, HHA, just getting into the healthcare. And also we actually had offices throughout Broward, Palm Beach, and also Miami. And I felt like it was a calling to create more jobs, to give more to the community. And I ran, and no one thought I could win because I was never in politics. I didn't have a political family. If anything, my parents are immigrants. They came from Haiti, and they told me not to go into politics. But I just went through so much being a single mother, later on getting married, and just realizing the disparity that was going on in our communities. And so that's where I said, no, I got to take a stand. So since then, we did the unbelievable. We actually won. It was a people-powered campaign. We won with the love of the district I grew up in. And since then, I was serving in Congress for 5 years, this district. Making sure that I brought in more than $540 million for housing. And we have a housing strategy. It's not just building houses that people can afford. We also brought in more than $980 million when it came to economic development. That's something that I think really differentiates me from anybody else in this race, having actually created economic opportunities, brought in that kind of money so we could do continuing education, so we can actually help our small businesses actually grow into bigger businesses. At the end of the day, I said our district should be where we have great schools and our kids can go to school and actually come back to opportunities. We need to have these economic zones actually in our district, not outside of our district, which we see so much of. They're always developing outside of us, but never inside. When we are the actual talents, we are the ones who are working and holding up the economy. And so we need to bring that back into the district. And that's what I've been doing, being focused on that for the last 5 years.
Okay. And I know definitely in the past, I definitely saw you out and about. You were out and about in the district. And Congresswoman, I just want to ask you, what are 3 major issues right now? Or what are the top 3 issues facing District 20? And what specific legislation would you introduce to address them?
So the biggest issue that we have in a district is the economy, but it's not just how everybody talks about affordability. It really is deeper for us, especially when we look at the history of the district. The history of the district, we did have former segregated areas where opportunities were never in our areas. That history still has a lot of remnants where we don't see development because of the stigmas or the past treatment. That's not where money comes into traditionally. In addition to that, we do have an affordability issue which is why we find so much of the prices that are too high when it comes to food and rent and existing. Now, that whole crisis was brought on with these wars that we're in, and also the tariff war, if you guys remember that, in which
Yes.
a lot of companies actually started raising their prices so they can anticipate paying tariffs. Many of them aren't paying tariffs right now. But guess what? They haven't brought down the price of food and other things. So we have legislation for that to bring down those prices. But I think it's a little bit more niche when you look at the district and you know it. One of the biggest things that I see impacting our district economically is the attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion. This administration's failure to actually pursue discrimination cases. We're finding that more than 600,000 Black women with degrees have been fired within 1 year. In addition to that, we're also finding that 650,000 Black men are no longer in the workforce. That's hugely disturbing because our district is majority minority, which is majority Black. And so what we're looking at, there's a frailty really in our communities that even if we do bring the prices down, we're still going to have that frailty that we have to strengthen, and we have to recompense and make those families whole. The truth is that the elimination, the demonization of diversity, equity, and inclusion, it gave several companies the excuse to actually fire Black employees. And it also gave them the excuse to release many of their subcontractors who were contractors on different projects. And these are people, and if you have a business and you're a subcontractor, you put in money so you can actually fulfill that contract. And they were abruptly fired. When you're working a job and you're believing you're going to have that job, you invest a lot. And for you to be fired based off of an assumption that you did not have merit, that it was actually diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's the injustice that I see a lot of us facing. So we have to be specific about putting legislation, and we've already crafted legislation to deal with this and protect the workforce, but really figure out how we're going to uplift our district. And one of the biggest things I tell people is that representing this district, which is so diverse, not just with Black people, but we have a good amount of people who are LGBTQ and different backgrounds. And I never have a problem advocating for their specific needs. And I believe right now we should not have a leader who's afraid to articulate the specific needs of this district. And the fact that Black people are being disparately hurt when it comes to this economy needs to be actually uplifted and has to be addressed.
Great answer. That's one thing I know. You're very thorough. Even me talking to you face to face, you always came off as very truthful to me, and I had a few conversations with you face to face in the past, and thank you for that answer. But I want to ask you something now.
Are you trying to say I talk too much and I keep your ears?
No. I learned a lot, even from me. I told you we spoke about me running here in Deerfield Beach, and you gave me some great pointers for running here, and I learned a lot just talking to you individually. So no, you don't talk too much. You say the things that I think people in Congressional District 20 would like to hear. I want to touch on something now that I know, Congresswoman, that has been problematic. And I, like a lot of people, have questioned the timing of things. But I want to ask you about accountability, a question about accountability. As many voters are aware of the ethic investigation and allegations that led to your resignation, why should the residents of District 20 trust you to represent them again? And what would you say to voters who have concerns about your accountability?
Well, I would tell them that I'm always the same person they knew. Like I said, I was the CEO of a company for 15 years, and I never had an accusation or any allegations. And in healthcare, we're very much scrutinized. If you watch the ethics hearing, they weren't interested in the truth. They did not want to have a full hearing or give us time to present information. In fact, we actually presented information that they called exculpatory, which means it shows that you didn't do anything, that you're innocent. But they weren't interested in that. If you remember, they kept on saying, oh, we have an election coming. What does an election have to do if you're looking for the truth? If you're looking for the truth, then you allow the proper time to get the truth. But if you're trying to get an agenda, a political agenda, then you're looking to execute your political agenda. And something like this should be taken very seriously, because if you're going to go and try to ruin someone's reputation, ruin their family on something that is so important. Why wouldn't you take the time? So I tell everybody that what they were trying to assert, that I wasn't supposed to have access to these funds, was totally false. We gave them the documentation, but they had an agenda. And I started ringing the bell to a lot of people in the district about what was going on. And we did have letters. We had a letter from the Congressional Black Caucus who said what they were doing was unjust. The only times in history in which they actually had these hearings were three, and it was myself, Maxine Waters, and John Conyers. All three of us, what do we have in common? Black. They have never had these hearings for anybody who was not Black, who they were not politically targeting. In addition to that, if you look at the way they did and the way they went about it, it just was very targeted. And so the Congressional Black Caucus wrote a letter. We also had a letter from other organizations, other veterans organizations who said they could see the injustice. The Palm Beach County NAACP wrote a letter. So several people wrote a letter because they saw the injustice. And so it's unfortunate. Once I realized you guys aren't interested in the truth, you're interested in your political agenda, then we knew that what they wanted to do and what they were trying to do was clear. And so at that point, we did everything we had to do for the district. We made sure that the district was taken care of, any appropriations. Our district was straight. Everything was taken care of. And then at that point, we said, okay, we're not going to let you do what you want to do, which is to totally destroy my name. And we're going to move on and run again. And that's exactly what we're doing. And at that time, I told them right what this is about. Redistricting is happening. And there are people who feel like they are the power players and that they are entitled to leadership in the district, even in a Black district. And they are trying to move me out to take the district. And voila, who's running in our race? Isn't it ironic that we got somebody coming from left field saying, I love the Blacks. Come here, my Black friend. Come talk to me. But never endorsed a Black elected official. Never gave $1 to a Black nonprofit. Never invested or did a project with a Black person. And so I just want people to be very wide-eyed and awake about what's happening.
And that was a question that was my next question. I was gonna lead into someone else, and I don't want to give them no shine. In this race that was traditionally a Black district, and I know people might have a problem with that, me saying that, but. And you pretty much explained that just now.
Well, I want to say something because you said
right. I want you to expunge on that a lot more.
Yeah,
about that person entering the race.
Let's talk about that because I think that when people now, all of a sudden, you're finding people who are part of the Democratic Party saying, hey, we have an issue with you identifying that this is a historically Black access seat. You shouldn't have a problem with that today because before you were okay with it. How did it become a Black access seat? It became a Black access seat because there are years, hundreds of years in which Black people went without representation, 117 to be precise. During those 117 years without having representation, several people died trying to vote. Several people died trying to organize, even in Mount Hermon, right there in Fort Lauderdale. That was the epicenter where people were organizing to make sure Black families can go to the beach, that Black people can actually have representation, that they can go to schools that weren't segregated, that they can get the full expression of freedom in which this country offers. And so at the time when we actually crafted out Black access, that wasn't just Black people who said, hey, we should have it. No, Americans, Black, white, green, whatever you were, all agreed in order to recompense the horrible history of tormenting and killing people who were designated, relegated to this area. Because remember, this was part of the segregated South, that they were forced to live in this area, could not live in other places, that we were going to recompense them and allow them to have a voice. That wasn't just Democrats. That was bipartisan. Democrats and Republicans agreed. Republicans actually pulled the trigger and did it. And so if we understand the history and the reconciliation that happened at that time, that made the entire country said this is the direction we should go in, how is it now when we have somebody else challenging it that it's supposed to be a secret? Why should it be a secret for us? Because any injustice that happens to any other culture isn't a secret. If anything, we're forced to remember so it's not repeated. So why should our pain and our suffering be a secret? No, that is part of the erasure, to shame people from actually articulating what you have done to me in the past. You want to shame me so you can erase my past. So the solution, so we can grow and be equal in the future, is also erased, and which is what we are not having, not on my watch, not here. And any candidate who is afraid and who stumbles and walks around it, don't even think about coming in this race, because this is about equality. The same way I talk about what has happened in Wilton Manors and how we have so many people in our trans community who are being killed, the same way I stand up and talk about what happened on October 7th is wrong, the same way I stood up and talked about how we need to make sure that food is getting into Palestine, this is the same way that everyone should be coming around and saying, you know what, this is wrong. If we're going to condemn the Republican Party, we need to condemn the people in the Democratic Party who are trying to do the same thing. And we should not be afraid to say it. If anything, we should be looking at our allies to be like, why ain't y'all saying it with me? Because when you got a problem, I'm the first one to fight.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that response. And let me ask you something too, Congresswoman. Did the Democratic Party and the Congressional Black Caucus try to meet with everyone individually or collectively that was running in District 20 to talk about that the other candidate, Ms. Schultz, running?
No. They did not. I mean, I think I understand where you're going with this, because I know there's another candidate, and I ain't gonna say his name, but I'm always fighting with him. Like, we got a brother-sister relationship, because he talks smack all the time. And if you're watching right now, when I see you, I'm gonna pinch you. But I'll be afraid that they'll say I'm doing elderly abuse. You know who I'm talking about. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so the Congressional Black Caucus, I think they did everything they had to do. They recognized it when she said that she was encouraged by the Congressional Black Caucus to run. The chairwoman actually went on TV and said there was no encouragement that happened. It didn't happen. When she came in and told the community she was being endorsed by soon to be Speaker Hakeem Jeffries, he came out and said, no, she was not endorsed. In fact, in this Jim Crow era and what they're trying to do, he is not endorsing. So outside of that, what more did you want them to do? They did everything they had to do. The next part is for the people in district to wake up. The next part is for the people who even got into the race. I mean, some of these people who are in the race, I don't know why they're in the race, but everybody can run. So I do think that the onus right now is on the district. The onus is on the voter. We actually, and the leaders in the district, because there's been some leaders who've been quiet. There's been some leaders who under the table are trying to work here and work there. So the onus is on us. Every generation has to protect its history, its progress, and its narrative. And at this moment, we cannot allow someone to get up and say that this is a Broward County seat. Absolutely not. During segregation in the 1970s, even in the 1980s, where there's reminiscence of it, and we didn't have money coming into the district, we weren't being the same. The truth is, we didn't start seeing our areas changing until we had Black leadership, especially in the county commission, Black leadership, especially in Fort Lauderdale. Those Black leaders, if you go into Sis-Trunk now, if you go into our communities are being transformed, because the people who have suffered the biggest harm often know the best solutions to correct it. Not people who live in the suburbs under the padded beds and the pedestals of Weston. You don't know what we suffer over here. And the one thing I say all the time, instead of forum shopping and trying to find the best place that you think is going to be easy, what you should be doing is being 10 toes down for your neighbor. Because when you abandon your neighbor who's living the good life, you're going to come over here and do what for us? In this district, ain't nothing ever been easy. In this district, we fight for everyone constantly. It's not petals and roses. In my district, people ain't looking for pickleball courts. They're not looking for that. They're looking for economic opportunities, for education, for fairness, to be protected, to live with dignity. That's what this fight is. So if you can't dig your heels in for your own people in your own district where y'all got so much wealth, what are you going to do over here? Or is it just a platform? Is this so you can get in our district and use our votes and our voice to benefit your people over there?
Yeah. And a lot of Black churches have been, I heard candidates in this election, different candidates that have accused a lot of the historical Black churches of bringing that candidate around. And they were saying that, as you said eloquently, the candidate had never before been involved in or seemed concerned about issues facing the Black community.
Well,
How do you feel about that with the pandering to the churches, alleged pandering to the churches by that
Well, I think
candidate?
that the churches, we got some good church leaders out there who are putting their foot down. And, I went to a service and the service was actually excellent. And the pastor stood his ground and exemplified what leadership is. He talked about the colonizers and the historical context of this district and made it very clear that, we have overcome so many different things and we will overcome redistricting. So I have seen the best of them stand up and be leaders and meet the moment. And then you see some who are the same regular people who are running around and, taking her and taking her here and there and taking money. In every society, we have people like that,
Hmm.
right? I
Yes.
remember when I first ran, people took advantage of me like that. So I don't think that's an issue. It's nothing new. There's nothing new in this lifestyle. I think what is new for us is for us to actually face someone who we thought was an ally. I always knew she was an ally because I never seen her do anything for the district. I can tell you honestly. In Congress, we get 15 projects. And in Palm Beach, because I used to have parts of Palm Beach, me and Lois
Hmm.
Frankel did projects all the time. So, I mean, every session, Lois would be like, okay, so what are we working on? And I'm like, all right, Lois, we're going to do this funding for Urban League together. So she'll come in with 800,000. I come in with 800,000 and we give to the Urban League and together they have 1.6 million to do the work throughout the entire county. In Broward County, we never had that conversation about doing something like that. Another example, because I tell you, I represent my entire district. She would say, hey, we support this Jewish organization together. I'm like, cool, we support the Jewish organization together because that's what partners do. We serve everyone. We never had that conversation here. If anything, there was more of a standoffish, she was always very standoffish. And then in addition to that, the fact that, she always tried to carry the name of Alcee Hastings as her Black friend or her Black credentialing, and
Hmm.
she continued that, like, oh, Alcee Hastings, like, that's her credentialing, like, that's my Black friend. So, but that was always her, that was always that person. I think what we have to focus on now is the future of the district and finishing what we started. But for these attacks, no one had a question of my capability, my character, because everybody knew me. If anything, several people have called me and they're like, this, I don't even understand what's going on because I was the CEO. I was their CEO. I worked for them and I fought for them. So people are like, this is crazy. As I walk throughout the streets and I talk to people, they're like, we know exactly what you're going through. We see what they're trying to do. And they're like, we don't believe it because we know you. I mean, if the state said they made a mistake and the state made this mistake over hundreds of times for more than one company, and at the time of the mistake, I wasn't even there, how is it now that I'm the only person that you want to highlight and go after, and the person who's pursuing it is related to the candidate? These are the questions people are like, this don't make no sense. But I digress. I think these moments really are about us and what do we plan for our community and how are we going to turn out these votes? And I think not only is it about us and about us getting results, it's about looking through the distractions. We have some people who are in the race who are distractions, who have never really worked on the federal level, who have never really given back on that level, who are trying to say that my experience in this area can translate. It doesn't. And at the end of the day, in my 5 years being in Congress, I was actually appointed after a year and a half to being the ranking member for the Middle East, especially in the Foreign Affairs Committee. That kind of appointment, people don't just give you or appoint you to that place, especially right now. The biggest conflicts we have in the world is what happened on October 7th, which is between Israel and Hamas, and also what's going on in Iran. And I was chosen after only being in Congress for 3 years to lead that. That shows you where the kind of person I am, the trust to actually negotiate that. That shows you what I'm able to do. And so I think we need to be very clear-eyed about where we're going and who can actually take you there and who can make it a reality. A lot of people talk ideas, but your ideas, have you ever manifested it for the district? Like I said, before I came to Congress, I was CEO. We employed and educated more than 10,000 people. That's results. You don't have to wait. When all this stuff was going on with TPS, we had over 200 town halls. Anybody could have had a town hall. Anybody could have done that. But you have a lot of people who sat back doing nothing and they felt like they smelled blood in the water. So they're getting up to say, oh, I want to run. But, what is your fruit? The Bible always talks about look at someone's fruit. What have you produced? What is your fruit? And I think that's what we have to look at. And another example of people's fruit, if you're running a campaign and you got to steal people's signs and you got to tell people I'm not running, you're already losing. If you have to go through that extent, it's a losing story. But I digress. I think this election is about continuing the work we did in building housing, continuing the work we did and making sure that people can actually prevent homelessness by giving the Salvation Army money. We also put money into Catholic charities, more than $5 million into Catholic charities. That money was used to help prevent homelessness. So if you needed help paying your electricity bill, if you needed help paying your rent, that fund was used so people can prevent them from missing a mortgage or a rent payment. And then we actually built housing, affordable housing. And what was distinct about the affordable housing that we actually built, not only was it affordable, but we had resource centers that were at the bottom level. So now you can continue looking for a job. We did job skills training, and people who were looking to transition to buy a home, we did readiness for home ownership and the mortgages. And then the last phase of what we did for different cities, we had down payment assistance programs where we would give up to, I think it was more than $50,000 so people can put their down payment or the deposit for their home. So we looked at every phase to make sure that people can get into their home and have dignity. And that is owning a home is really one of the ways you can leverage your finances and actually have generational wealth. So that was, to me, was important to stabilize our families. And in addition, our young people being able to work here at home and keep that money in the market. Too many of our kids go away for education and we want them to come back, but there's nothing to come back to. My kids are 23 and 22, so I know exactly where it is. I don't want my babies to be far. I want them to be right here so I can watch them. And what would be even better if they have a job right here, you can spend money right here. And, we live that life where we're a real community. So building back economic corridors where we can enjoy it. And when I say we, it's everybody who's in this district.
Yeah. And I want to just go back to something you said earlier. You were saying that the person that is investigating or pursue whatever charges or investigation of you is related to the candidate that came from another district into this race?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. That's what I wanted to. I just wanted to make that because I was looking at someone sent me a text just now and just was asking me about that, which I just wanted you to expound on it more. And you just kind of explained a lot, Congresswoman, of my question here that I was coming to play. And I just wanted to say too, looking back at your previous time in Congress, what accomplishments are you most proud of and what unfinished work would you like to complete if elected again? And I know you gave me a rundown of a lot of things that you had did, but what unfinished work that you still left on the table?
Well, we got so much that's unfinished. I think a lot of the work we were doing to move us forward actually started getting pushed back with this economy and being pushed back with this administration. Now we got even more work to do. What I've been focusing on moving forward, so we're not at the place where we're just doing economic development, right? Now we're looking at how do we recompense, pay people back, or get them to leapfrog back to where they would have been, right? And so one of the things we're looking at is creating legislation where we create a fund. In that fund, if you were harmed, let go, discriminated against, you can actually get paid out of that fund to make you whole. Why is that necessary? I don't believe that this administration is going to be pursuing any, discrimination claims. And I was talking to a group of attorneys and they said that they've been using reorganization, these policies of diversity, equity, inclusion, everything you can think about to remove us from the workforce, because their belief is that we are taking their jobs and we are not taking their jobs. So having legislation to create a fund that can recompense them. The job for the community is so far from being done. I've only been there for 5 years. And in 5 years, you're just starting the work. We have much more work to do. The housing crisis is still something that we're working on because so many people have not had the opportunity. People who are right in the middle of preparing themselves to buy a home and right in the middle of getting that down payment, who are looking for that funding the next year, those people are still waiting. When it comes to also, I think the biggest part which we weren't able to help is healthcare. And I say that because many of us believe that, if I have the money, if I'm doing well, then the healthcare is going to come because I'm going to have that job. The truth is the market has shifted so much. We're not having jobs that could use health insurance like they used to. We have a lot more people who are influencers doing marketing, and there needs to be some protections for them at the end of the day. And so we're also looking at creating legislation so they're different, like a national 401k. So anybody, entrepreneur, can pay into their 401k and have those protections when they retire. We're also looking at how we can actually create, I'm a big fan of Medicare for All, because one thing I notice is that in our community, so many people have trauma. And when we're looking at why people can't keep a consistent job, underlying, you're going to see some mental health issues where somehow they have something that's untreated, trauma that's stopping them from working every single day. So for us to have that workforce that is going to pay into Social Security, we have to make sure that we're more stable. The last thing also, that when I look at healthcare from every generation, the top generation, I see a lot of older people who are being denied the healthcare they need. Where they're on a fixed income, they can't afford all their medications, and they're even becoming hungry at this point. We looked at a hunger study, and we had a hunger forum. And what they were saying, for the first time in history, they're seeing an increase in seniors who are committing suicide. And they're saying that there's a correlation between hunger, not having enough money to take medication, that makes them feel that homelessness, that hopelessness. And then when we look at our working class, there's so much trauma, the instability of working. But I think the most thing that's disturbing to so many people, especially me being a mom, is that right now we have the most number of kids who are being diagnosed with all kinds of learning challenges and learning differences. And when you're dealing with a child with these learning challenges and differences, it's hard to have the resources to take care of them, especially when our teachers are getting paid so little. So what we are looking at is how we can get money into the school system through HHS, so they can cover some of their health expenses, because all of this stuff is a health classification. So there could be more money going towards helping all children. Right now, the money that goes is kind of like kids who are more severe. So you have a group in the middle whose parents are doing tutoring, doing everything, trying to get their kids up to date. But the truth is that there is something out there that's causing our kids now to be diagnosed with everything. So I think the work for healthcare needs to be done. The work for the economy needs to be done. And housing also needs to be done.
And you touched on healthcare, and it's something very interesting. All of us had been watching the hearings with Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci he pled the fifth over 100 times. Dr. Fauci had been a part of different administrations over the years, I believe from the Bush administration, I believe maybe Clinton, Reagan, maybe. What are your thoughts on the Republican-led hearings now about COVID and with Dr. Fauci? What do you think? What are your thoughts on that? And do you think at the time with what we knew, or do you think Dr. Fauci should be made to stand in front of Congress and answer, or do you think he should be possibly jailed for misleading the American people, if that's the case? I know it's a loaded questions, a lot of loaded questions.
You asked me what my initial thought was. This is political theater. Political theater, like just like when they did my hearing, they wanted to have it on prime time. And you have people who know nothing, who don't even understand anything, trying to create it. And they all trying to go viral. They're all trying to create this moment. And it has nothing to do with truth finding. And right now, everybody has a preoccupation for stardom. And it's unfortunate. And I think that takes away from it's a distraction. It takes away from what really needs to get done. Instead of having these hearings, why not pass a bill to deal with affordability? Why not pass the bill on housing that's sitting there? Like, it's a distraction. I'm going to put something in your face and put it prime time and say all kinds of salacious stuff that's not true. So you could be distracted until tomorrow morning when you try to have some eggs and you ain't got no money, right? So it's political theater. It is. And I'm sick of it. Like people don't care about this kind of stuff. I want to know, how can I eat today? When I go in the street and I'm talking to people, you have real people who are suffering. You have real people who are about to be homeless. Kids are going to school, and I'm getting all this people who are texting me, asking me, hey, could you help my child get a book bag? And then you have older kids who are like, their parents are like, could you help my child get their hair done or a haircut? People are suffering for real. And you want me to sit there and watch you on Fauci? Did you pass a bill? Have you done your work? It reminds me of like when, you're a child and you're growing up, my parents are Haitian, so they're very like strict. And I would have all these conversations about nothing. Like, oh, I like to say, did you do your homework? Don't you have nothing to do? And so that is my feelings when I look at what's going on right now. Ain't y'all got work to do for the American people? Like, why are we here still? So it frustrates me a lot when I see this stuff.
Yes, and it is. I mean, looking at it, it is political theater. What captivates me is he was a part of the Trump administration, and they pushed him out there. So I mean, looking at it, you see Josh Hawley, Senator, people like that. I mean, I don't know what they're looking for right now. Where they should have done this years ago. Why wait to right now? And I mean, for me, it's political theater too. But when you was talking to healthcare, I just wanted to.
It's a distraction, so you don't realize that all the prices are high because of the war in Iran.
Gas.
Yeah, there's a war in Iran, right? We don't know how we're getting out of it. I mean, it's a distraction, so you won't realize that your kids are about to go to school and you got no money. It's a distraction, so you won't realize that they're trying to deport people, and if they deport them, the economy is going to crash in Florida. You're not going to have anybody working in the airport. You're not going to have anybody who's going to take care in healthcare. Like, your nurse won't be there. It's a political distraction. So you're sitting there talking about gossip instead of realizing, like, my mama's nursing income today. What happened to her? So you don't realize, like, oh, the price, we're still in a war. Oh, we just passed the budget. Oh, did we allow this country to actually be, intertwined into our government? Wake up. It's a distraction. Because there's real stuff, like we do real stuff in Congress that lasts a very long time, but they're distracting us. And that's where I say, like, most people aren't watching these things. Most people are like, when they go to vote, they're like, okay, can I get a job? Food is too expensive. At one point, I was doing different things on social media where, we have mangoes here, in Florida. And so we have these mango trees. And so during mango, we're like picking the mangoes and everything, and everybody's like switching mangoes, and they're telling me how expensive mangoes are now in the supermarket. So more people want mangoes. And I'm like, damn, y'all trying to turn me into a farmer because the economy's so bad. I have a girlfriend who has chickens because she has a whole bunch of kids, and she was like, it's better for her to actually have her chickens and get her eggs and everything. So we turn it into farmers now because the economy's bad. It's a distraction. And most people, they're not buying it because, like I said, a lot of people are fired. And a lot of people aren't working right now.
And how do you feel about term limits for politicians, especially in Congress and in the Senate?
I think term limits. Well, term limits have to be, I don't believe in term limits in certain circumstances, right? Because the truth is, people now, we have much more, you have the internet, you see people, you talk to people. Term limits aren't as necessary as before. I think we got bigger fish to fry. You get term limits in, I think it's going to change a lot of how politics works, especially for the Democratic Party. I don't know if you mind if I go into that. You want me to go into it? So from the inside of politics, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, they do things a lot very different. Republican Party doesn't really lean on seniority. People rotate out quicker. So the average term for a Republican could be less than 10 years. The average term for a Democrat could be 16 years, right? Because it's just very different on how they do it. They move through leadership very quickly. Traditionally, the Democratic Party was all seniority, whoever was there the longest. But right now, with the change of generations, we're finding that to change. So you have an entire generation that was waiting to be next just because they were there, who actually got skipped. Those are the people who are kind of upset and raising hell, So if you look at who's the head of different the ranking members, they're actually much younger people. And so even in this race, you see the struggle here, right? Like, you have somebody who's been there for 20 something years who's still trying to hold on. The average, most people in Congress have been there less 5 terms, which is less than 10 years. So right now we're seeing a complete transition within the Democratic Party. So this race is even indicative of what's going on within the party as a whole, where now you have a new generation that's moving in, which is, my age, like in the 50s, 40s, 50s, who are moving in. And the ones who are much older, they're still fighting for that moment in which they missed. They feel like that moment slipped through their fingers, which the truth is, your moment's gone. You can't try to move somewhere else now to have a moment.
And I'm glad you spoke of that because I hear a lot of people say now that our Democrats says that this Democratic Party is not the Democratic Party of my grandfather or my grandmother or whoever else. And I know everything is changing, but what can the Democrats do to more align themselves back with the voter? Because I think a lot of people have gotten disenchanted with the current Democratic Party. What are some of the things you think they can do to steer the ship back to where it was 20 years ago?
There ain't no going back. No, because your grandparents lived in a different time, right?
Yes.
It's only a forward movement. And so one of the things, like when we were doing our town halls, now we did more than 200. I could tell you, I told people the truth, right? I said, we have to have a mindset in which we are loyal to the people who are loyal to us. Okay. That means I don't give a damn about a party. I don't. What I care about is, are you loyal to the community? Can I work with you? And at that moment, it is the Democratic Party. That's who's working with us, right? However, there are some things in which, we're not happy about. Most of the Black men are becoming nonpartisan. A lot of people are becoming independent. And what I say to them, I'm gonna give you my analogy, which I give to everybody, right? We all have family reunion, right? And the Democratic Party is like your family reunion. It has the big Democrat, that's our name. So, for me, it'd be McCormick family reunion. We wear the shirts, we wear the signs, everybody's coming in at McCormick. Now, everybody got a crackhead or, some kind of person who has an issue, right?
We do.
So you go to the family reunion, the crackhead now bought 2 more crackheads. And they wearing the McCormick shirt. And I'm like, damn, I don't want to be wearing this shirt with you, But the truth is, you can leave and now your name is associated to all the crackheads, or you can stay in to change the culture. You can stay in and be like, hey, we don't do crack here. We're going to actually put you in a rehab. This is what we're doing. We're a place where we're changing. And that's what I ask everybody to do when it comes to the party. We can't leave the party to the crackheads. We got to come in there and change and demand change. We have to tell them, well, look, we will not support you unless you support us. We have to put pressure. And that's what I've been asking everybody. We've been doing civic engagement in the park, in the churches, in a multitude of languages, civic engagement, because the only way I can apply pressure to the party is if y'all lean in with me. If y'all leaning in with me, it's a lot of pressure, because when we lean in and we say, you know what, thank you for your services, we ain't messing with you, we're going somewhere else, they can't survive that. And so that's why our numbers have to go up. We all have to be voting and applying that pressure and making our demands. But if we only got 4 of us who are voting, what pressure are you applying? It's like a fly at that point. Just swat it out the way. You're not voting. You're not doing it. So that's why I keep in saying that we got to take over the party. We have to make our voting power so strong that it's undeniable that if you want to win this race, guess what? You got to come through District 20. Now, quiet as it kept, it's already that. If you want to win that race to governor, I'll see you in District 20. And if you focus on flipping more than you focus here, you're not going to get the numbers you need to win. So we're already there, but we need to have more people coming together so we can apply that pressure. And like I said, it's not a color thing. It's about what we're asking for. We all want economic mobility. We all want to live the American dream. There's some people who are extremely talented. That person should be able to create an institution with generational wealth and show people their talent. What is wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. What there is something wrong is putting blinders on, like you don't see it, saying that we're going to make things how they used to be. Absolutely not. We got to fight to move forward.
Thank you for that. And how do you plan to address the current political climate and work towards bipartisan solutions? And is that even reasonable? Or can we even do that in this day and time with this?
Yeah, we can. I think people try to make it seem it is possible. People try to make it seem like it's not possible. When I was in Congress, I passed many amendments. I worked with many Republicans. The thing is that our algorithm in the media likes drama. So the algorithms in the media is going to keep leaning towards drama. But we do have to figure out how to be bipartisan. Being bipartisan means that everybody has to be fed up with it. We all got to be saying, I don't care for this theater. What have you done for me lately? it just has to be clear. What have you done? What are you doing? I don't care about your show.
Mhm.
I laugh about this, right? Because we've been having issues in our community for a long time. And now you got new people standing up for the first time trying to say, oh, this is the problem. Nigga, you know how long, I mean, I still need to say that, but you know how long we've been fighting this war and you just came over here and tiptoe and you want to say that there's a problem? Like, come on now. So we just have to have a no nonsense thing. And what I want to mention also about political resistance, right? There's a way for you to do political resistance without personally attacking someone
Right.
and talking about their mama, right? Like, this is stupid. If you start talking about somebody's mama, ain't nobody working with you. But there's a way to
Right.
actually talk to them and negotiate. And I think we need to be at the place where we're applying pressure, where we're negotiating over and over again. And I didn't mention this, but I do want to mention this. When we talked about
Mhm.
people who are moving to be MPs and independents, one thing I always say to the community is, do you know who is the head of the independent party that you have your loyalty to? They're like, who? And I'm like, Bernie Sanders. Have you seen Bernie Sanders in our district? Has Bernie Sanders talked about our economic issues for the Black community? So
Yeah.
if you're going to make an act of resistance, actually have a resistance that actually profits you. Your act of resistance should benefit you. It just can't be willy-nilly and have no results. So our act of resistance has to be showing up and negotiating. When we have democratic events, show up and ask questions. Raise your hand and be like, let's push the limits. That has to be using your voice, uplifting it, and pushing forward.
And what do you think is one of the biggest challenges facing our country right now today?
I would say extremism. I say the biggest because it's like every group is trying to hate each other, right? And right now, the attacks that each of these groups have is because it's, it's Black people, it's Jewish people, it's gay people, it's all this hate and anti. People not realizing that the truth is that our lives are so intimately tied that we all have to benefit and grow for us to do better as a nation. And I'm starting to see this kind of hateful rhetoric on both sides. So I can't tell you that it's just one side. I would love to tell you that racism is exclusive to the Republican Party. It ain't. Racism is a mentality that people possess. I would like to say that sexism is exclusive to a party. It ain't. We got them over here. We deal with this. And so I think that the pendulum does shift. And when the pendulum shifts, I believe that our country is going to start moving towards reconciling leaders. And I hope that it's not a disaster that moves us towards a leader that can reconcile. Because if you look at what happened with Biden, I knew he was going to win. I knew he was going to win because everybody was suffering and everybody was looking for an uncle, somebody they know who's going to be reasonable. So I think that the hate has flared up so much. The visceral conversations has flared up so much that people will the pendulum will swing back. And so at a later date, after y'all go out and vote for me again, we could talk about who we think is going to actually be the presidential nominee.
I think it was Dr. King who said the pendulum always swing towards justice, right?
Eventually.
Yeah. Also, Congresswoman, me and my brother hear a lot about here in Deerfield Beach, actually. We hear the people, the residents here, always telling our elected leaders here that they don't listen to the people. How do you plan to remain accessible and accountable to your constituents if elected or re-elected again?
I'm always accessible. So we always have bi-weekly virtual town halls. So when you're in DC, when you're elected, you go to Congress for 3 weeks out of the month. So during those times, we have town halls that are virtual and we tell everybody what's going on. Usually we have like 10,000 to 15,000 who get on. Sometimes some people don't want to get on. And I'm always like, we do teletown, we call. So you'll hear me call you. We do town halls. We did several town halls also in Deerfield right there. Deerfield Beach, where we had the conversations. I mean, I'm always accessible because I like the people. I actually like the people here more than the people in DC. So I'm always here in the streets talking to people and hanging out because my heart is here. And so I want to hear what's going on. I want to know how to make it better. I've never been one of those people who think they know everything. I've always identified that, even as a CEO, as a CEO, it's very humbling, I think, because you realize that you are not the smartest person in the room. And if you are the smartest person in the room, the business will fail. It's the same thing in Congress. If you're the smartest person and you only listen to yourself, you will fail. The people who are suffering, the people who are living it every day, they have the answers. So a lot of the times I talk to people, we have a lot of boards, which we put people on the board so they can help me with legislation, so we can stay connected. I go to a lot of events and talk to people and see what's going on. I know a lot of people like to go to events and dance, but I actually go to talk to people, and we talk about how we can make it better. So I'm always in the community. Like I said, we did over 200 town halls. We were the only member of Congress in Broward County and in Miami to do those face-to-face town halls. Remember when people were booing and giving members a hard time?
Right.
We were the only ones who were doing it. And we had to get security because they would send trackers. But we did it because we knew it was important. And I remember people asked me, was I scared? Because at that time, we were doing them also in Palm Beach, not too far from Mar-a-Lago. So they asked me if I was scared. And I asked my team, hey, are you guys scared? Because y'all are here with me. And they said, we ain't never scared. And I said, oh, don't get me, riled up. So we did it. And at the end of the day, I love the people more than I love being bougie in DC.
Okay. And how do you feel about gun ownership and gun rights here in America? I know a lot of people that aren't Democrats always tell me, and I tend to kind of agree with them. They like the Democrats are fear mongering the people when it comes to guns. And I know the assault rifles and all of that, which have caused major damage to our kids. But how do you feel about, and are you a gun owner? And how do you feel about gun rights here in America? Do you think that they're being lowered, or they're just fine for where we are right now in this country?
No, I don't think it's fine. We need to have some gun legislation. We need to have some gun rules. We see already what's going on. The fact that we're living in a country where shootings happen so openly, no. And just as well as I know, not everybody, people aren't okay with everybody having guns. So let's just make it very plain, okay? And so we do need to have gun regulations. Our gun policies and our gun makers, they're destructive, not just to us, where now we live in a world where you don't know if you're going to get shot or not. There's always a shooter. That's crazy. We shouldn't be living in that world. But let's not forget the crime and the killings that even happen in the Caribbean. That I passed legislation so we can actually watch what was going on, because most of those guns that go into Haiti, into the Caribbean, even to the cartels, those are American guns coming out of our country. And then you're going to hear, oh, we got to put money because we're fighting the cartel. Well, if you didn't arm the cartel, then we wouldn't have to fight them like this. So no, our gun policies are horrific, not just for us in the United States, but for everyone around us. And if we're talking about actually having money to help us as a community, you have to put the rules there so you don't have to spend so much cleaning up. Most of the money that we spend in foreign affairs around us is to clean up the mess that we created, the mess that we're watching happening. Most of the guns going into the Caribbean, going into Haiti, where we have, which one we're putting over there now, that comes from Miami. We went right there to the Miami River and we saw the boats and we saw the inspections. That's coming from here. So if we actually want to have money so we can put into social safety nets, such as childcare, such as erasing student loan debt, such as making sure we have healthcare, we have to have stricter gun laws.
And I wanted to say that too, because here in Florida, I remember when the concealed carry came out, everyone thought the world was going to end here in Florida, and I mean, I've been a concealed carry person legally through the state since 1987. But I'm saying that everyone thought the ceiling was going to fall out then here when they did it about 2 years ago. And now we have open carry. It was a panic on social media, all on the news. The ceiling was going to fall out. But I'm just saying, here in Florida, I can't speak for like places like Idaho or wherever else. We haven't seen that level of violence here that everyone was forsaking. We were
No,
gonna
we
see.
do. We know we have a lot of violence here. We have a lot of violence. Matter of fact, I had an issue when I went to the Juicy Patty, where somebody pulled out a gun. Like, no, we do have a lot of it. I think a lot of the fight, a lot of the violence we have in our district, people think that okay, it's just black people. When it's somewhere else, they're up in arms. But we have a lot of crime, a lot of violence, increasing,
Mhm.
especially in central middle of our district. We have a lot of it, and it has to stop. Innocent lives over and over again. And so I think
Yeah.
that this gun, I mean, I've been to different countries. So as the head of the Middle East and Northern Africa, I've gone to several
Mhm.
countries where they don't have these kinds of problems, where you do have guns like around. So I'll give you an example. When I went to Saudi Arabia, I'm not a gun person, but when I went to Saudi Arabia, we were on a trip. And on that trip, we saw different places. And we went to this place that was similar to like Disneyland. And when you go in there, it's like a firing range. And so that was
Mhm.
the first time that I had to fire a gun and a
Mhm.
rifle and different things. And
Mhm.
then when you leave, no one's walking around with the gun, but they allow you to shoot and you practice. And it's like a regular thing. It's nothing big, but no one's walking with the gun, but you're still able to engage. It was like a Disney World.
Mhm.
Everybody's safe. And so when we look at our society and what makes our society, there is a middle ground where you could be shooting and learning and having a gun, but that doesn't mean you got to be with your gun in the juicy patty when I'm just trying to get a beef patty. What you trying to do? War. Like, I ain't come here for no war. I just came to get a juicy patty.
And I wanted to say it's crime everywhere. I don't think you're never going to stop gun crimes. That's never going to stop. To me, you're going to have to try to educate. Some people you can educate, some you can't, some you just going to have to lock up. But I was talking specifically about the mass shootings that people were thinking were going to happen, because all I saw online when they did the concealed carry and the open carry, oh, you're going to see Florida go to mass killings. I'm just saying, I don't see the mass killings that people anticipated. That's what I was talking about. Crime, you're never going to stop the gun crimes. I see little youth. Sometimes I'm riding down the street. I don't know whether they legal or not legal. So, I mean, because now we also have a law where 18, I believe, 19 to and over can legally carry guns here. They can't purchase the gun here, but if someone gifts them with a gun, they can legally carry it according to uh, uh, whether it was a Supreme Court or Florida Supreme Court law. But that's what I was saying about the mass shootings. But I want to move on because I know I have to get out of here, and I got two more things for you, Congresswoman. How do you what distinguishes you from your opponents in this race?
I'm the only one who has represented this district, who has brought back funding into this district, who has consistently fought for this district. There's nobody else who has the experience of fighting in Congress or who has a relationship. Winning this election will make me the second highest ranking. Lois Frankel will be retiring, and she said she's going to be retiring next session. And so once she retires, I will be the top ranking Democrat in the state of Florida. And as a top ranking Democrat in the state of Florida, I can tell you our agenda will not be abortion. We will not be setting that priority. Our priority will be economic upliftment for the entire state and the entire country. Our priority will be make sure that we live in a state that is respectable for everyone, that everyone can attain the American dream and not be afraid of losing it. Our seniors should not be hungry, depressed, and suicidal. Our young people should feel hope and not feel lonely and feel like they have no opportunities here. Our regular working people, we should feel content in knowing that we're building a community and we live in a community and we're not divided. And so everybody else who's running, they have a whole bunch of ideas, but they never did nothing. Show me your fruit. Where is your fruit? Did your fruit lie in District 20 or does your fruit lie somewhere else? What does your fruit look like? And so that has to be the question. Ask them what their fruit. They're going to tell you, oh, I did stuff in the commission in Broward County. That's not the same. Right now in Congress, we fight on all fronts. I'm fighting in the courthouse because of my law degree. For TPS, we're the ones who wrote the amicus brief that redefined the narrative and talked about the economic harm that would happen. That was my amicus brief. We wrote that. We got 98 members of Congress to sign on to that. And that opinion, in the opinion, they actually cited my amicus brief more than 7 times. There's nobody else who did that, who actually changed the narrative that's slowing down. If you look at Secretary Mullins, what's Secretary Mullins talking about? Well, maybe we shouldn't deport everybody because of the economic harm. Who told you that? Congresswoman Shelia Cherfilus-McCormick told you that, not anybody else. If you even look at what's going on when we're fighting in the streets, in the community, who is organizing the community? Who's organizing the churches? Who's pushing back? Congresswoman Shelia Cherfilus-McCormick is doing it. Ain't nobody else doing it. Everybody else is sitting there. Some of them talking on their podcast, not organizing. The other ones running from party to party, dancing with the ladies, as he says. I mean, and the other ones just shouting around, making noise. This is not about making noise. This is about results. Who has changed your life? Ask people in the district, who has actually changed your life? But for the false accusations, do you think anybody would be in this race? I went unopposed, but for the false accusations. And everybody who knows me, more than 15 years as a CEO, and I had never had a complaint.
So, and in the end, go ahead, Congresswoman. I think
it's very clear. I think it's very clear, and the district knows me, what's going on. And I think it's also very clear. There's only one person who's been fighting for you. There's only one person who has delivered. There's only one person who has won a congressional race in District 20, and that is me. And so I want to continue that fight. It's just unfortunate that we're living in this moment in time where our fortitude is being tested. Our history is being tested. Our ideologies right now as a party and as a district is being tested. Are we going to actually take the steps that it takes to have a leader who can give fresh leadership, not the same old things that were happening before? Because the truth of the matter, everybody who's been in Congress more than 20 years is retiring. More than 20 years, they're retiring. They're not staying anymore. A lot of them are leaving because it's changed so much that they are outdated. So why would we take an outdated member of Congress and put them over here? Why would we do that? Why would we take somebody who worn out? You don't even know how to fight right now. The fight is so different. Same old ideas. The same old ideas that when we had Hillary Clinton. Are you kidding me? Are we doing the same politics from when we had Hillary Clinton? Are we doing the same politics when we had Reagan? Come on, y'all. We're in a new place and we need a new leader who's been there for 5 years and who can do this.
And I wanted to say, before I close you out, in the final analysis, will you be vindicated of everything that you were or are being allegedly accused of?
In Jesus' name, I believe so. I know so because we know the truth. And it's very clear what the truth is. And so I feel like in this moment, what I tell everybody is we can't be a part of the injustice. We see it happen everywhere. We see that, the way they're going after everybody is an intimidation tactic. I'm not going to be scared. I'm not going to get up and bend and break. And the truth is, fighting for this district needs somebody who's battle tested, somebody who's not going to fold, who's not going to be bent and break. If anything, this situation has made me stronger and made me harder and even more committed to be able to fight this fight and win, because we have been fighting and winning, where a lot of people who are in my situation would have been under their bed crying, saying it's unfair. I get up every single day, despite how I feel, to go fight for this district, because I said, I'm not going to allow myself to be a part of the injustice by letting them win. But much more importantly, I will stand and protect my district to make sure that everyone has a fair shot and to make sure that intimidation doesn't get us to forfeit what our ancestors and our predecessors fought for. We will not forfeit it. If you're going to come and fight me for this district, I said it in DC. When I left in DC, I said, you know what? Okay, fine. You've been in Congress longer than me. These people, you got control over them. You've been doing this game for a long time. But fight me in the streets. Let's go back home. Fight me in the streets. Because in District 20, we fight very different. It ain't going to be all these lawyers you pay to go do this and that. No, we are in the streets. We are knocking on the door. You can go take the pictures with all the black babies you want, but you got to be in the streets really fighting here to win. And so we're here and we're fighting in these streets. And let's see who has that stamina to actually win this election.
Okay, and finally, Congresswoman, I'm gonna, what message would you like to leave with voters who are still undecided, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes. You could answer that, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes to tell the voters of District 20 why Congresswoman, former Congresswoman Shelia McCormick deserves to be reelected again as your representative in District 20.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. As I mentioned, I'm your Congresswoman, Shelia Cherfilus-McCormick. And when you elected me 5 years ago, we did the unthinkable. We actually said we're going to commit to a vision for this district, and we started carrying it out, in which we brought in more than hundreds of millions of dollars right here into the district for the first time that went into residents' hands. All the nonprofits were actually people who lived in the district. All of the people who benefited from our policies, from our funding, were people who lived in the district who never before were a part of this district, working to grow the district. In addition to that, I have poured out my heart for our constituent services to make sure that you and your family live a dignified and a better life. And there's a lot of people running in this race who are going to say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and they can identify every single problem. But the truth is, they have no fruits. They have produced nothing in this district to change your life. As your Congresswoman, I fought on every single front, on the legal front, in Congress with legislation, and I've also walk locally. You need a leader who's battle tested, who has the fortitude, who has the intelligence, who has the grit and the integrity to stand up and fight no matter what test, no matter what threat comes their way. And I have proven to be that. You know my character because all the time I've been in Congress, I've never been accused of anything until now, until they wanted this district. But I will continue to fight and make sure that you and your family are put first and not any intimidation or threat that is coming our way. And I'm your Congresswoman, Shelia Cherfilus-McCormick, and I approve this message.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you for gracing our presence here at the Adams Brothers podcast. And can you tell our viewers where can they donate to your campaign and where can you be found on all social media platforms?
Well, you can find me at Shelia Cherfilus for Congress, Shelia Cherfilus-McCormick for Congress on Instagram. And we also have our website, Shelia for Florida, in which you can donate. And we definitely need donations, especially at this moment. But I thank you so much for even just being here and listening, and please come out and vote. I've been encouraging people to go vote right now. We don't have, there's a lot of absentee ballots out, but a lot of people haven't turned them in. But this Saturday starts early voting, so please have your voting plan. We're asking everyone to go out and vote and make your voice heard so we can actually continue the work we've been doing together.
And I was going to ask you to do that, but you did everything in one. So yeah, early voting starts this Saturday, correct?
Yes, it's the 8th through the 16th.
Through the 16th, yes. And the primary, the Democratic primary, is August 18th. So folks always say, let's just not vote, but be informed. Go back and listen to this interview, this great interview that the Congresswoman did. And don't just go by what you hear in the newspapers and in the media. Go by. And is there if anyone wanted to contact you and besides social media and have a talk with you, do you have any contact number where people can reach you at?
Yes, they can call me on my cell, 954-668-5358. You ain't got to write it down. You got my cell phone number.
I knew it, but you know what? I just wanted to make sure that the one that I give, I don't want to give out your, I don't like giving out. Yeah, I just want to make sure that wasn't the personal one.
Well, that's what it is.
Thank you very much, former Congresswoman Shelia Cherfilus-McCormick. You're always welcome on the Adams Brothers podcast. You have my number. You're welcome to call, and I definitely would like to have you hit some of the churches up here in Deerfield Beach. As I tell all the candidates that come on here, I always tell them, hit some of the churches here in Deerfield Beach because everyone probably it's good to see a person in person instead of just seeing them here.
Well, we're going to church together this Sunday, right? We're going to your church this Sunday.
I'm going to talk to my pastor and make sure that it's a go. So okay. You can definitely come there. I will get back with you and I will let you know.
All right. Thank you. We do 4 churches every Sunday. So we would love to come.
Thank you. I'll get with my pastor as soon as we probably as soon as we get off. Like I say, I got to go speak. So it's nice having you. It's always a pleasure having you, former Congresswoman McCormick.
Thank you for having me. Have a great night.
Thank you. You have a great evening too.